Hello there YouTube friends and subscribers. We've got the Volkswagen Golf 1.9 TDI, quite ancient old girl here, and what we're going to do today is investigate why we're getting a knocking noise from the driver's side front hub. My suspicion is that it's the wheel bearing, so the first thing to do is get the wheel off and probably get the disc off, or the rotor as it's known sometimes, and see if we can figure out what to do next. I believe it's the driver's side wheel bearing that's causing the noise, so I'm going to try and film the noise for you just to see if we can identify the problem. Right, this wheel there's quite a bit of play on here, and the set screw is busted. Now, I don't know whether that's come about because of vibration, but and the set screw, as far as I understand, as a DIYer, is there to locate the disc or the rotor in position. It's the actual wheel nuts that hold the wheel together onto the hub. Right, what we're going to do is get the caliper off to start with, and I think that is something like about a 7mm Allen key, so I'm going to put that in there and then put an extender bar on it, and we'll shift that. Now you might be wondering why we've got some telephone wire here. Well, what we're going to do is support the caliper so that it doesn't stretch this or strain this brake hose. There's the whole caliper off now. The pads didn't even fall out when I removed that. So that's the caliper securely out of the way, so that we can now proceed to get the big nut out. The big Jesus nut is 27mm, and you might need to put in a sort of breaker bar, an extension bar, bit of old cold water pipe would do, just to crack that nut open. And now the rotor will come off the hub. Now, by giving this a light tap with the tapping stick, you'll find that will release the drive shaft from the... Right, once you've given this a couple of sharp taps, you'll find it pushes the axle or the drive shaft out of the hub. And what I've noticed is, you see how that bolt is wet with grease or oil at the end? My guess is, because the bearing has disintegrated a little bit, it has spewed out some of its lubrication. Right, so we've managed to extract the hub without the need to undo these bolts down here. As far as I can see, there are 3 of these bolts now which hold the hub on. I've got a 10mm Torx or star head. That feels a little bit loose. I suspect it could be a 12mm fitting required there. We'll try it in a minute, but first of all I'm going to give it some WD-40 and clean it all up to give ourselves a chance. I'm not quite sure how much resistance there should be here. I would have thought that would have just spun, but it's quite sluggish. You can hear a little bit of noise from it. Right, what's left to do now is undo these 3 bolts, 2 at the top, 1 at the bottom, and they apparently take a 12mm, it's like a Torx, isn't it? So that it feels like a rather tight fit there, so we might have to just assist it into its position and hope for the best, because if this doesn't go right we are going to be in serious trouble. This is extra stiff, but with the old breaker bar on it's just turning. That's one. I'll be quite honest guys, dropping this arm is probably the way to go, but you can actually get access to that bottom bolt and get onto it with your extension bar like that, if you don't want to release these bolts here, which affects the tracking apparently. There's the 4 retaining bolts out, and I believe we should now be able to give this a firm tap with the tapping stick here, and this should come off. I don't really know. Yeah, that looks as if it's still held on by another bolt, which I haven't noticed. Okay. Right, now to push this hub off, I'm putting the bolt back in to the place it came out of, so that I can give it a few swift taps with the tapping stick, and that is pushing the hub off its mounting. Right, we've given that some serious welting from behind, and out she comes. So here's our wheel bearing kit, direct from GSF, and this has cost something, just a few pennies over £60. What I did discover was that there is a hub with 4 bolt holes, and some vehicles have 3, so that's quite crucial obviously when you're ordering your spare part. There's 4 holes and some have only got 3. I've cleaned out this seating here, and when we apply the new part it just goes straight in. I was thinking we would have to press sort of pull that in, it would be tight and it might even need a little lubrication, but it just drops straight in, which, if I'm honest, I find that surprising, but there we are, we've bolted up. Right, that's the new bearing assembly on. Always torque up the bolts from the back to the correct tolerances, and with the Jesus nut in the middle, make sure that's torqued to the recommended amount. Now what we're going to do is put the brakes back on, put the rotor on or the disc on, and then put the brakes back. Right, there's the brake caliper back on. Unfortunately the grub screw was busted, as you remember when we started this video, and I haven't got a fresh one, so we're going to just have to pop the wheel back on, and when I get time to find one of these we'll come back to it. But that's the job done as far as I'm concerned. Well, thanks for watching, guys. What we've done here is change the bearing on the front of a Mk5 Golf TDI, the DIY method. One thing I would say is, before you get under your car and start taking things off around the wheels, make sure you use axle stands, avoid any disasters. If you'd like to subscribe to my channel, that'd be good, thank you, and you'll be able to see what else we get up to around the car and around the house, and even some photography tips.